coming up on Outdoor Oklahoma.
Good one. Well, he's wide, isn't he? Come out of that muddy, turbid water. Those blue cat really are light colored out of that muddy water.
You could drive to probably, but driving in would be a little bit noisy. And sometimes it's good to be a little sneaky. So.
Good job, baby. Much flavor that comes out of that first bite. You get that rosemary right off the top. Oh, you got him! You got him, Emily!
Oh!
Nice mess of blue cat we have right there.
Ready?
Now folks, this is what we're after. This is what you get in Outdoor Oklahoma.
Outdoor Oklahoma is brought to you by the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, sharing the beauty, the adventure, and the spirit of Oklahoma's wild places.
Well, it's been a while since our last catfishing episode, and I know there's a lot of you out there who really enjoy bank fishing for catfish just as much as I do, so we're going to give it another try today. In our first episode, we focused on points that jut out into lakes. That's one of my favorite spots to fish, especially if there's been a headwind or a flanking headwind blowing into that point. Sometimes very productive for catfish in lakes. The next episode, we just fished an old mud flat. Many of our lakes here in Oklahoma have, especially on the upper end of the lakes, mud flats with basically no topography, no structure to speak of, no variation in depth, all the things you normally look for in a good catfishing spot. But those mud flats get really, really productive, especially in the springtime, particularly when the shad start spawning and you can really fill up a stringer sometimes. But we're going to switch gears today a little bit and employ one of my favorite tactics for bank fishing for catfish, and that's fishing in running water after a flooding rain, which is what we've had here in the Texoma region. We've had an exceptionally dry spring. Today's the last day of April, but a couple of days ago we finally got that big rain, over 4 inches in most of the basin of Texoma. And as you can see behind me here, the water's running. There's many creeks that run into Texoma. This is one in particular that's just starting to widen out into the lake, which is a place I really like to target when it's running. Still a lot of foam and debris coming down. There's a lot of rough fish in here, carp, buffalo, gar, drum. Hopefully we can wade through them and catch a couple of catfish, because catfish love to nose up into fresh, muddy water. Now that's probably an oxymoron, but you know what I mean. When the flooding water comes down these creeks, it brings all types of nutrients and bait, all types of dead material washing down, and they basically go on a feeding frenzy. And hopefully we'll have some up in here looking to eat today. Now what I'm going to use today, and these are basically 6-foot Walmart specials. And I have old Ambassador 5000s on each of them. I bought them used off of eBay. And anyone in the know on catfishing reels knows that an old Ambassador 5000, especially the old Swedish models, are fantastic. Maybe one of the best, if not the best, overall catfishing reel. If you take even decent care of them, they can last you years and perhaps even decades. I've got them spooled up with Berkley Trilene big game 30-pound test line, so we can hold anything if we happen to get a hold of a big one today. And basically my setup is real simple, same as always. I got a 4-ounce bank sinker on the bottom. Up above that, about 1.5 feet, I'll tie a leader into my line, probably 10 inches, and then have a Eagle Claw wide bend laser sharp number 4 hook on that. I also always bring my favorite rod with me. It'll hopefully see some action at some point today. It's just a real limber, medium action, again, Walmart 6-foot rod that I've got an old Shimano Calcutta with 20-pound Berkley big game line on, because, you know, I get a fish on that and it kind of harkens back to the cane pole days with all of the flexibility. So I always enjoy catching fish on that as well. Bait for today, now in running water, almost any bait will work, because they're out here looking for anything they can get a hold of to eat. Worms, crawdads, cut perch, chicken liver, shad, you name it. But my go-to bait is always fresh shad. And I was fortunate enough to catch some big gizzard shads a few days ago in my cast net. Now I'll mention something about shad too. The little shad don't last very long, a day or two, and they start getting soft and they won't stay on your hook very well. But I want you to know those big gizzard shad, if you'll take care of them, keep them relatively dry and packed in ice, they're good to go for a week and even more. In fact, these shad I have today, I've got cut up into chunks, but they're 5 days old, so we'll see how they work out. Also have some earthworms. Of course, that's a fantastic bait in running water. The earthworms I have, I actually grow myself. I had an old boy that was throwing away a chest-type freezer. It was inoperable, and so he gave it to me for free. I bought a 50-pound bag of what's called spangled peat moss from Walmart. I saturated that peat moss, set it in the bottom of that chest freezer, probably about 1 foot deep. Put my earthworms in there. They're called Georgia Browns. They're not as long as a night crawler, but they're real fishy worms. They'll definitely catch catfish if there's any around. And I feed them about once a week with chicken crumbles. It's basically chicken feed. You can get a 50-pound bag at a feed store for $7, $8. And if you think about it, you can hardly buy 2 containers of night crawlers at the bait shop for that much money. So it's pretty economical. And I keep that chest freezer on the north side of my shop building so it doesn't get that direct hot sunlight during the summer. And they'll keep all year round and they'll reproduce in there. So you'll always have bait available when it's time to go fishing. And lastly, I've got some grub worms. Just white grubs, beetle grubs. I don't use them very often because I don't find them, quite frankly, very often. But funny story, a couple of days ago, we was having one of those big deluges of rain. And I looked outside. I have a dog, it's a shepherd mix named Shep. Real original, I know, but he was a rescue dog. And I saw him eating stuff off of the ground, running here and there. I didn't have any idea what he was doing, so I went out there to take a look, and those grub worms were coming up out of that wet ground to get out of the water. And he was picking them off one by one and swallowing them down, kind of like a great blue heron swallowing a perch or something. I didn't know dogs would eat grub worms, but this one will. Maybe he's watched too many episodes of Naked and Afraid, I'm not sure, but I was able to get ahead of him and get me about a dozen, so we'll put grub worm on one of these poles and see if it'll produce. Grub worm was always one of my dad's favorite fishing baits, and my dad and I, this time of year in April, would always take a week. I would take off work. We would fish all week, every day, bank fishing for catfish. We did that for decades. And he passed away last day of November in 2020, died of COVID-19, actually. And so I'm gonna dedicate this day to him because I know he would love to be here today. Now, he lived a long life. He was just 2 weeks shy of 95 years old, healthy the whole time, World War II, Battle of the Bulge vet. So he had a full life and he's gone on to his reward, so that's a good thing. But we'll dedicate this day to him. But enough talking, we're gonna get these baited out and tossed in and see if we can get a rod to bend. We'll put a piece of cut shad on this first one here. And I've cut these shad up. They come off of a big shad. I just fillet them off of the shad and then cut them into, probably 2-inch strips that are probably a 1/2 inch wide. Now, the thing to remember is you want to have plenty of your hook exposed after you put this chunk of shad on there. So just come down probably 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch below the top of the cut bait, bring it through, make sure any scales that were on the barb or the tip of the hook are removed, so you have that sharp hook and your barb available. And that's the good thing about these wide bend hooks. You have plenty of hook remaining because that's a big bait and you don't want to get the bait over the point of your hook or you'll lose the hook set every time. Put that one right out by that floating debris out there. That's always a little bit of structure. Even in running water, I like to target it. We're gonna put a grub worm on this hook. It's one of those big white grubs I was talking to you about earlier. Now, one thing I will do with these, they've got a natural bend in them, and if you bring the hook through that natural bend, sometimes that worm will be in the way of your point. So what I'll do is come behind the head there, the opposite direction of the bend, cast that out and see if something's interested in a grub today. put some earthworms on this one. These are those little Georgia brown worms that I was telling you about earlier. They're not big, but they're active. And I don't think there's any proper way to hook worms on. I have a way I do it. I like to leave as much of the worm wiggling off of the hook as possible. So I'll basically grab I'll come down from one end of the worm just a few millimeters, bring the point of the hook through, maybe a 1/4 inch, bring it back out, fold the worm over, do that again, and then come back out of the worm before I reach his other tip. So you have all of those worm tips floundering around out in the water. I think that's a good thing. I like a full hook of worms as long as I've got plenty of the end of the hook exposed, the tip of the hook. That'll do it. Put another piece of shad on my 4th pole here, and we'll stop with 4. And we should be in business. Just a waiting game now. That's on those earthworms. First fish of the day. She's coming to her milk. Nice one. That's what it's all about. Fish on the little pole. That one hit a piece of that shad. We got here another blue cat. Now that's the kind of action we like to see right there. He's talking to us. He's loquacious. As Carl from Sling Blade might say, I like the way you talk. Anyway, this is a blue cat. Of course, they're generally lighter in color than a channel cat, but the best way to identify them, because sometimes in certain water turbidities they look kind of similar, especially a bull-headed channel cat can resemble a blue cat out of clearer water. And the way I remember it is, on the anal fin here, a blue cat is blunt, straight across, B and B. A channel cat is curved, C and C. That's how I always remember them. But yeah, that's a pretty Lake Texoma blue cat right there. Really good eating size. I figure that fish will weigh 4 pounds maybe. But I've got some digital scales, just got them this year. I've been using D-Lyres most of my life. I had a pair of digital scales that weren't too accurate before the new pair I bought, but I'd like to try them out. Now those D-Lyres, that's what catfishermen have been using for decades, I guess, but I'm not sure how accurate they actually were. In fact, I sometimes call them wee-lyres. That one's gonna weigh about 7.5 pounds. He's fat, meaty, makes some fine fillets. Bring him on in, I'll land him for you. That's a nice fish. Look at that. How about that? What do you think about that? Now be careful, don't let him pin you. If he starts flopping, just drop him. Let's weigh that one up. I think that fish might weigh, 8 to 10 pounds maybe. Good one. Well, he's white, isn't he? Come out of that muddy, turbid water. Those blue cat really are light colored out of that muddy water.
We'll try to call them Mississippi whites, right?
Some people do call them Mississippi whites. I'm not gonna get in that debate. If you wanna call them that, that works for me. Boy, he was really cranking that rod down, wasn't he? You know a kid's getting excited when he beats you. When a kid beats me to the punch on a bent over rod, he's got a future in catfishing, I guarantee you that. We'll put him on the digital and see how far off I was on my guesstimation. Congratulations, Reed. You've landed a 10.5-pound blue cat. Now he's easier to hold, isn't he? That boy looks strong enough he could hold up a 20 with him. Nice work, nice work. I think he's getting to be a pro. Those are good blisters to have. If you got blisters after a day of catfishing, it's been a phenomenal day. That's your fish. Fat, isn't he?
Oh yeah.
Seems like these fish kind of come in waves sometimes, doesn't it? Crazy. Well, Reed, I bet you're glad you ended up coming today, huh?
Oh yeah.
Sometimes things work out that way. You probably hadn't planned on being on Texoma catfishing today, had you?
Oh no.
Like I said, Reed's dad, Darren Hills, our fabled cameraman today, and he didn't get in on much action running the camera, and Reed probably hadn't planned on it, but he got in the mood pretty quick and the pole started bending over. In fact, he beat me to the punch on a couple of bites, which you don't see very often, so credit there. But no, always good to get a kid involved, and you know, Reed's what, 14 years old? Right between that kid and man stage, but anytime you have any relative, a friend that has kids, get them out catfishing. It's easy. You can fish from the bank, gather up some worms or little chicken liver, and go out and have some great memories. We've made some today, made a new friend in Reed, and we've had a fantastic day of catfishing. In fact, it's about time to wrap things up. We've got more than we can eat already, so we'll call that good. And let's go drag these fish in. We got a lot of filleting to do. And it ain't just loose talk either. I'd be amiss if I didn't thank the Lord first and foremost for a beautiful day and opportunity, freedom we have to fish out here, and for this fine string of fish. That's what it's all about. And there's the safe. Got to be quick on the draw, catfish. And there's another fish on there, Darren, beside you. Poles bending, string of fish. I guess one more won't hurt. That's why you want to make sure you got good, strong line, because you'll get into this in flood situations, a lot of debris. But, and there he is. .32. He'll go back in the water. Well, you know, sometimes a measurement will fool you. That 30.5 was a little over 12 pounds. We'll see what this one weighs at 32 inches before we let it. Well, we got interrupted a while ago by a bite, and can't complain about that, but that fish went back in the water, and here's what we strung up for the day. That's going to be plenty of meat for all of us. Enjoy a few meals with our family. And now the work begins. We'll try to get them filleted up. Reed, need to feel that stringer. They're all there. There's a strong young man.
Stormy, he is a registered quarter horse. He's 21 years old. I've had him since he was 4. He's been all over the United States, or western United States. He packs, he rides, he does it all. Probably one of the best horses I've ever owned. It's just kind of a I would say more of a dying art. It's a little bit of trouble for some people. I don't see it much as trouble, but it's just another tool. It gets you into places that you could drive to probably, but driving in would be a little bit noisy, and sometimes it's good to be a little sneaky, so it works pretty good. It takes me back to my roots. It's actually a lot of fun. You can cover a lot of ground that you couldn't otherwise in a vehicle. Gives me a chance to keep these horses in shape, and you know, the element of surprise sometimes is pretty good. So. Get him level here where I'm just above him and make it a little easier to get on. There we go. There we go. Waterfowl season is a good time to check hunters off horseback. This time of year, I'll probably start riding a little bit at night because it's so hot. And then most of the activity here is going to be in the nighttime. People catching frogs, fishing, things like that. So. I still work the same type of work I've always worked. I work a lot of nights. It's been the greatest career a guy could ever have. You know, it's got ups and downs, but like anything else. But it's just you just go with the flow.
Outdoor Oklahoma is produced by the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation and is proud to serve and be funded entirely by sportsmen and women and outdoor enthusiasts who love and appreciate all things wild in the great state of Oklahoma. Connect with us online on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, and YouTube. Want to know more about the Wildlife Department? Visit us at wildlifedepartment.com. Thanks for watching.
Mm-hmm.